Today, you're going to identify the core pattern within a pattern block sequence and use that core pattern to describe, analyze, and generalize a rule for the pattern. We're going to be looking at fences today for our task. What patterns do you see in these fences? Yeah, all of these fences are a little bit different, but they have the same thing in common in that they have a pattern, something that repeats. Today you're going to do a task to help Barney and Fred build a fence along their property and create a design. You're going to use pattern blocks to do this. Today you're going to be working to describe the pattern of this fence that I'm building here with my pattern blocks. It's your job to identify the core pattern. The core pattern is the part that repeats. So in this situation, the part that repeats is right here, this green triangle with the trapezoid. Now you might be thinking, what about this first trapezoid? Well, this first trapezoid is just the start of the pattern, and then these two blocks that repeat themselves is the core pattern. That's the pattern that just keeps repeating on and on. So in most patterns, you'll have one block that's just the starter block, or one number or one shape that's just the starter. So in this case, here it is. And then you'll have the pattern, the core pattern that repeats itself. Let's look at the task. Here's the task. Barney and Fred build a fence. Barney and Fred had designed a fence to divide their properties. The red trapezoids are the fence and the green triangles are the gates. Each gate needs to have a trapezoid fence on either side so it doesn't fall down. Describe the pattern you see. So here's where you will describe. When we analyze patterns, it can be useful to name the core pattern. So here's an example of the core pattern, or you could have chosen to do the green, then the red trapezoid as your core pattern. It doesn't matter as long as you stick with it the whole time you're referring to your pattern. So you might have remembered that in my example, I identified first green, then red as the core pattern because I used my first red trapezoid as my starter. So if you identify red, then green as your core pattern, then you will have an ending red trapezoid that is not a part of the core pattern. Okay, for Barney and Fred's fence, a core pattern is one triangle and one trapezoid, but that's not enough to describe the complete fence pattern because a gate can't be left hanging alone right here. So here's how we fix that problem. One triangle and one trapezoid after starting with a trapezoid. So remember in my example, this was a starter to our pattern and this was the core pattern. And it's important that you notice that because again, this green can't just stay on its own. How could you describe this fence differently when using the other core pattern? So if you decided that it was red then green as your pattern, how could you describe this last piece? And then write that below. Okay, here are some other fence designs. So go ahead and what is the core pattern and then use words to describe that pattern. And then here's another one. And then finally it says to create your own fence that is different from Barney and Fred's design. Sketch your fence on a blank piece of paper, identify the core pattern, and describe the pattern on your fence. If you still want a little bit more information on what the core pattern or pattern core is, go ahead and watch this quick YouTube video that helps describe what a core pattern or pattern core is. Good luck today.